stretch out, right? Get some
To go.
stretching or something.
Hey, aloha everyone. Michelle Melendez with Blossom Inner Wellness and StandTogetherHawaii.com. And this is also on the Voice of Kona Radio, 100.5 FM on the islands of Hawaii, actually on the islands, the Big Island. So mahalo so much for listening. I get to interview again John J. Singleton of Ace of Coins. This is about property tax. I'm just super excited about this one because it's so funny. I was just telling him before we started recording was that a friend of mine sent me a video, his video on this, and he's like, "You got to watch this," and I'm like, "Oh, this is great. I want to do even better than watch it. I'm gonna interview him and get the inside scoop." So, John, thank you so much for joining.
Sure, love to do it. Yeah, these are always interesting calls. Let me
Awesome.
close the door here. Go ahead, go right
Sure,
ahead.
sure. So we this is a live Zoom right now, and eventually I'm going to learn how to do the YouTube live. I think
All
I just
right.
have to
Teach
do
me
it.
too. I don't know. I
Oh
tried it.
man,
I did it once, but I didn't have a clue what I was doing. Yeah.
I did it once too, but I want to do a screen share. So in order to do
Oh
the
yeah.
screen share, you have to download the software and da 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 da. So
Okay.
yeah, we're finishing up. I'm finishing up the book, The Great Maui Land Grab. It's almost done, and after that, I will have more time to figure out YouTube live, and I will let
All
you
right.
know. But so you guys are who are joining live here, I'm gonna open the chat, and if you have questions, just put them in the chat, and I will ask John as we move along through this. But John, just I would love to do just a little bit of background about you because people who are listening on the radio and people who don't know you, what's your story with creating all of what you've created? Because Ace of Coins, for you guys that don't know, Ace of Coins is really an amazing company that he's created that really supports freedom and limiting or eliminating taxes, which is absolutely unconstitutional. And we're going to be talking about that as well. But John, just share a little bit about your background. How'd you get started in all this?
Well, aceofcoins.club, that's where we publish a lot of the content. It's a video series,
Mhm.
but I do teaching and one-on-one consulting, and I have a team of people that work behind me that do these things. So I started back in the 90s, the early 90s. I'm an entrepreneur, and I noticed there's a lot of people having credit card debt and tax issues. I didn't know anything about that stuff. So I started going into the court system and listening to the cases. And then I was talking to any professional I could find, attorneys and debt collectors and whatever. And so I determined that the problem that people are facing is they totally lack the understanding of how they're using their property rights. They're entering into obligations they didn't even realize. Like as an example for this call that we're talking about, people don't realize that when you acquire real estate, it's done through a piece of paper known as a quit claim deed. That means the guy before you that had the right to sell the property has quit his claim to do that and deeded it to you. Now you have the claim. You have the exclusive claim because your name's on the title. But what's not understood is that with what comes with that claim is other claims against the title. Those include your local government's regulatory framework and taxation, property taxes and permitting, and whatever else goes with that. You've inherited that with the title. And so you agreed to it in the beginning. That's the nature of the system we're in. We have an economic system that is known as a feudal system. That means there's no private property. So in the beginning, I didn't understand all this stuff like I just explained, but over time I realized that the common denominator is that people don't understand when they're incurring a liability. It doesn't occur to them. So they lack the knowledge, and so they make mistakes or they get afraid or
Mhm.
they go to an attorney thinking that they have an advocate, but they don't. What they have
Yeah.
is they have someone who's practicing attornment, which is taking a property. All they do
Oh
is
my
take property.
goodness.
They just take
Yeah.
property. I mean, once you understand the definition of what attorney is, the etymology of the word, you understand, okay, this is a feudal system in which the attorneys ration out access to the law through a private club known as the court.
That's correct. Yeah.
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 So what do we do? Well, let's not use the court. How do we get away from the court? Well, we can use arbitration agreements. We can use contracts. I've got a
Hmm.
contract right now, and we'll get into this because on the property tax, you've already given up the claim to the title. You're not going to stop them. You can't argue with it. You already gave it up. That's the nature of the quit claim deed. That's what
Hmm.
comes with the property. So you gave up the permitting as a claim. It's a lien on the title, put it that way, okay? The
Wow.
ability to impose permitting obligations is a lien on the title. just like if you bought a home in a community where there's a homeowners association, where a covenant has been recorded. Every
Mhm.
neighborhood is a homeowners association. It doesn't matter if there's a recorded corporation or something like that. The difference is if a covenant has been recorded to formalize that association into an official set of rules, which everybody's under,
Mhm.
that covenant is a lien on the title. Just like what gives rise to the permitting, that's a lien on the title. Where's the lien imposed from? It's the statute. How does the
Wow.
statute? The statute imposes a lien, but the only time it can be exercised if there's a violation of a statute that gives rise to a penalty under the statute, and then there's a power of foreclosure that the government took for itself. Because again, we're in a feudal system. You don't have
So
allodial titles and things like that.
so explain feudal system, because I know, I understand the courts or corporation. I understand that the attorneys, they definitely do not work for the people. It's all about money. It's all about how can we basically, I mean, there's so many sleight of hands in the system that take money from people all over the place, including like the last interview we did was at the family court system. But explain a little bit more for the layman, including
Okay.
myself, about the feudal system.
I'll define it in terms that you already recognize what's going on. You just haven't put them in terms yet, in
Mhm.
words. So a feudal system is where no one has property right, private property. You don't have property that's unencumbered. There is no allodial title and all this jazz, okay? We don't have that type of economy. We haven't had that.
Yeah,
There was a period of time in American history from around 1820 or 1840 to about the Civil War, and that period of time ended. But in that
that
period
makes
of
sense.
time, yeah, we had the most prevalent, most likely uh, existence of a non-feudal system, but I don't know what that would be. An
Mhm.
allodial system? I don't know where, yeah, how can you have I don't know. You have to be able to, okay, so feudalism is where you're getting permission from the sovereign to
Mhm.
use property.
That's right. That's
And
right.
every time the lien holders,
Mhm.
okay, let's go back to England where the king would grant someone a land patent or something, right? Well, who's the lien holder? The king.
The king, yeah.
Who's the
Okay, yeah.
next lien holder? The noble, who, the lord or the whoever it is, right?
Yeah.
Well, ultimately, the
Let me
value of
shut
that
the camera
property,
off on this Zoom
Oop,
meeting.
oop.
the volume, the
Let me mute everybody here. Go ahead. Oh wait. So I accidentally muted you too. There we go. Okay, go
yeah,
ahead.
the value of the property ultimately comes from the person who works the land, the serf on the
Mm-hmm.
land. So the feudal system is where the serf on the land has to acknowledge when the titles change. He has to agree to serve a new master, okay?
Mm-hmm.
That's the
Yeah.
archaic version of it, the modern day version of it, and it's very difficult to find this. You can kind of get some of it through case law, but I get it through observation. I look at what's going on. I go, well, this is a feudal system where you have the title holders, the attorneys, practicing attornment, which is the taking of property from one and giving to another in a system of fealty. Now, that's an official definition of your court system. The practice of
Mm-hmm.
attornment is the taking a property of one and giving to another in a system of fealty. That's the definition of a feudal system. So our entire economy is a feudal system. You guys think we have three branches of government and the Constitution? No, we don't. That's gone. That's been gone for decades at least. We have,
Yeah, yeah. Well, when
yeah,
you said after the Civil War, because after the Civil War, what happened was the banking elite families were funding both the North and the South parts of the government.
sure.
And so what happened was they actually created the US corporation after the Civil War. And that's what took us back to England. Well, actually we were back to England before that, but that's what really put the nail in the coffin is after
Yeah.
the Civil War.
The Constitution, if it does have anything to do in our lives, is about managing people. It has nothing to do about protecting your rights. You don't have any
Oh,
rights. You have prerogatives, you get things done, but where we make it worse is we don't really understand very basic things like I have the right to enter into a contract. Well, that right is a property right. The right itself to enter into a contract exists, okay? When I enter into a contract, I will list then my rights and obligations within the contract. I can develop those with the other party. but my right to enter into the contract already is a property right that I possess before I enter into the contract. That's really important to understand because that you get into a situation where you think that you have to answer for something. You have to
Hmm.
answer to somebody for about how you're using your property.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening in Maui. Is all of these,
Yeah.
yeah, it's in, I'm just like, these planning departments don't have a right over you. Like they can't, like what they're doing, and they can't
Well,
be doing, they're,
they have rights over the title because you gave it to them. We have to understand that. So this is where we are in history, though. You're not going to undo
okay.
this part of it, but what we can do is go back before this. So they got us on the title,
How
but
do we do that? How do we go back
okay,
before
so
this? Because
look
I
at what
agree with
happened
that.
with the taking of the property from the Indians, the
Hmm.
American Indians. It was taken by force, but it wasn't taken through the use of titles and foreclosures. It was taken through force and violence, but the possession of the land was what was important. So back in those days, in the 1800s and 1700s and so forth, back before then, the American Indian understood that his use of the property established ownership in our sense of the word.
Yeah.
So in order to get it, you couldn't, there's no recognition by the American Indians of a title. The
That,
Europeans did that.
and
But
the Hawaiians too. Hawaiians
yeah,
didn't have title
they
either.
took Hawaii because of
Yeah.
the sugar growers wanted the US government to protect their sugar interests.
Hmm.
That's why Hawaii's, I
They
don't know,
overthrew.
if it's a
Yeah.
valid state or whatever, but still, yeah. So once you take possession of the land, you could do stuff to it. And which is what the Europeans did. They created titles, a system of taxation, just like was done, in Europe. So that's where we are. So what goes with that is all kinds of liens, and it's like a handle. With that handle, you control the property. You can take it away, you can give it back, and that's where you get your system of fealty, permission to use things which exist on the earth that people should be using. Now, I think it's a good idea to have groups of people or the group of people that would benefit from the use of land make the rules and then everybody abide by it.
Hmm.
I think it's useful. And in that sense, I think we're
Yeah.
always going to have a governing body. But I think we're being exploited and we're being treated like the American Indians once again by our
Yeah.
own creation, our government. Our government gets its power solely from the power we had, the judicial authority, the power to execute laws, to arrest people. We gave that power, and we gave the government and the court system a monopoly on the access to the police power. This is another aspect of what people don't realize. So this is the choke point of your access to property rights and freedom. Is the court system has created a gatekeeper system so that you can't get access to the law unless you're allowed. That's the definition of a feudal system. Again
Wow.
and again and again, there's all these aspects of a feudal system that we're looking at. We're not describing it in the correct words. And I think part of what I do is I can describe it, then we can do something about it. Once we realize what's going on, like I don't want to get too off subject, but family court
Hmm.
is nothing but involuntary receivership. It ain't family court.
Correct. Yeah.
So
Mm,
back
yeah,
on
from the
the
last interview.
property. So here's what's going on the title. The claims are already in the title. You're not going to get rid of them. You can't. You're just not going to do it. Okay. The court system is going to take your property if it wants to. The executive agencies are going to exercise lien rights on the property. They're going to make them up. They're going to be fake, whatever, but they're going to do it. This is what's
Hmm.
going on in Hawaii. This is going on
Yeah.
in California. Okay, and some other states, Oregon, I believe, maybe Georgia too. But anyways, you still have the recognized right of possession because on your property, almost everybody has easement rights. I mean,
Yeah.
you drive your car to the edge perimeter of your property and you cross the perimeter onto your property.
Yeah.
How'd you do that? Through an easement. So the easement was adjacent to your property and part of that easement extends onto the property and then it turns into your private property. Then you have the utility easements. You have easements that access water rights. These are very important because water rights, the use of water spans parcels of land underground. So there's got to be some, description and understanding about the use of the water. If I destroy the value of the water now and it moves away from my property onto the next person's property, I've destroyed his property because he can no longer use the water, right? So it's
Yeah.
important to have easements and rights and obligations under easements. So easements are older than the Constitution, I guess is what I'm getting at. Easements are older
Wow.
than the Constitution. private property rights precede the Constitution as well. Without private property rights, we wouldn't have a Constitution. These are intangible private property rights. The right of association, without that, you don't have a constitution. You don't have a framework for government. So we didn't give up these rights. We just delegated them and then we forgot about them because we got
So
lazy.
how do we get them back?
Okay, so
Because,
what we need to do is go look at
and I
what
have
the
another question too after that.
yeah, okay, so what we do is in writing, we can establish easement rights for the use of property. So let's say you have you're the title holder of some piece of property and you're using your property. You're cutting the grass on Saturday and maybe you got some flowers and you're growing some, raspberries on there or something, carrots and whatever. You're using the property. Well, because you have the right to sell the property, it's a pretty comprehensive right. The title holder has all the rights, mostly. He doesn't have the claims on the title. He has the
Yeah.
right, which means he also has the liabilities. That's another thing too. All
Yeah.
these right claim holders pass off the liability on you, like the mortgage. The mortgage is a law of the title. The mortgage is. The mortgage is the law of the title of the property. The mortgage lien. So are the statutes that govern all the permitting and so forth and so on. The HOA covenant, same thing, okay? Now, if I take my rights as a title holder and I convey them, a large part of them, not all of them though, I cannot do all of them. I can convey a large part of those rights over to a grantee, which has no interest in the title, has a completely different interest. A third party like my Uncle Bob, who lives in another state, for example. I'm just a hypothetical example, okay?
Okay.
So I convey my rights over the use of the property to my Uncle Bob, who's the grantee of what we would call an easement. So he and I have a contract, and then we take that contract as it pertains to the legal description of the property. And don't get me into the tax thing. I'm not talking about property taxes and the legal description. I understand there's all these other descriptions of the property. I'm just saying, once you describe the property in acceptable terms, that description should be less than the title holder's description. The grantee of the easement, if he wants most of the property, he can be granted that right or those rights and obligations under the easement. Then the easement is effective against everyone who has adequate notice of the easement. So I don't have to record it in the county like my mortgage. That's a rule of a statute that has to be done, right? What I can do is I can literally, I can take the easement terms and I can post them on my land in a big poster if I wanted to. I can put them in the newspaper. I can send them in a letter and I have to prove service, but I can send them in a letter to somebody who might become the new title holder. Or I can record them just like my mortgage lender did.
Wow.
So once I do that now, I've got a grantee that's got almost the same rights I had as the title holder. So let's say as a title holder, I get foreclosed upon. Now we're talking about solutions. I think we all understand the nature of, the property taxes and the permitting. We don't like it, but I understand the nature of the beast. Okay, so let's just say it's going to happen. Here's how you deal with it you want to avoid the controversy and you want to avoid a situation of you fighting against your own money. This is what we're doing. In the easement, I'm going to give you a couple of tricks of what we do. So now that there's an easement and the title holder gets foreclosed upon, he's out of there. He has to go. He can't use the property as the title holder anymore, but somebody else can use it as the grantee. Now we can get into the title holder reacquiring the use of the property through the grantee. There's a way to do that, okay? But the grantee then has the use of the property almost in the same way the title holder did. He can grow his plants and cut the grass on Saturday and whatever. He has rights and obligations as well. Now, in the grantee, the terms of the grantee, I can do this. In the easement, I can say, as the grantee, I'm going to let you use the property the same way that I've been using it. And you still have to cut the grass, and you have to do this and this and that. But you also have the right to do this and this and this. Okay, then I want to make it to where, now keep in mind, when the title holder gets divested of the title because of it's a foreclosure or something, let's say, yeah. So he's gone, but someone else takes the title.
Yeah.
That person steps into the contract as the new obligated person under the contract.
Doesn't it go? Because my question is, what about the mortgage? Like, who's paying for that? If the title.
All right. So, okay, there's a priority of liens on the property. So if the property is foreclosed upon because of property taxes, it'll strip the bank of its lien rights. You can actually remove the mortgage. You want the foreclosure to take place because it'll exhaust all the lien claims on the title and you'll have a clean title then.
Oh,
But in the meantime, retain possession using the easement. Now, here's what you can do in the easement contract. You can make it to where the next title holder that steps in place must defend your rights as the easement holder. How is he then going to sue to try to get out from under the easement? He can't. He has to be your advocate. So there's no adversarial situation. Our courts only recognize an adversarial situation. Then I can go into the dispute resolution clause of the contract and say that all disputes must be resolved by compulsory and binding arbitration outside the court system, the trial court system. So I can reach a resolution amongst my peers, a jury of my peers. They're probably going to agree with me.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. And so the new title holder, maybe it's the bank, maybe it's an investor. Sorry about that, real estate investors, but you're in a war. So this is what's going to happen.
This is a war. We have been in a
It is
war a
a
long
war.
time.
Yeah. So we have a bigger enemy than someone else who's just an innocent real estate investor. So anyways, it's not against them, but anyways, so the new title holder is going to have to be your advocate, your best buddy. And if there's a dispute, you simply go through arbitration. The arbitration form has the power to declare your rights under the easement. What's it going to do? It's going to say, well, the arbitration panel's judgment is the easement. It is.
Wow.
Whatever
That's
was
amazing.
that's our judgment. Okay, well, that was the law of the property the moment it became public record or the next party was noticed as to the easement terms, or when I
Yeah.
recorded it, which is public notice, okay? So that's the law of the property. Now I have an arbitration award that's also the law of the property. But why do I have to do that? I have an arbitration award because, like I explained before, I still need access to the police. I can't use force and violence. Our society gave that, they let the courts monopolize that. So
Mhm.
what I've successfully done by using arbitration is I'm going to get access to the police power without going to a trial court judge. In fact, once I get the arbitration award, I can go to the trial court and the judge can't scrutinize the award or the merits of the case.
Oh my
He has to,
gosh.
he has to convert it into a judgment lien. And then I can take the arbitration award, which would include a writ of possession. The judge would have no choice but to confirm the award, and I would hand it over to the sheriff's office and say, serve this and enforce it. Now I have access to the police power and I avoid the corrupt trial court system, which has lost its minds lately.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's
Oh,
incredible. You know what? This is like reversing it on them because you actually know what the heck is going on, which most people, including myself, have a hard time going when I go into court. I'm like, this just there's so much about the court system that is wrong, and like you said, the Constitution doesn't protect our rights anymore, which this is a corporation, and all of these agencies are meant to make money off of us little peons because we don't understand the language.
we provide the value. They're just stealing it from us. They're
Yeah.
farming. They're farming our value. And we just, we're not benefiting from it. We're not betting for it. Someone asked me today about resolving a thing going on with the HOA. And I told him a couple of things to do, but I said, your most important thing is to get together with a couple of neighbors and address the matter in writing. Don't be the only person that tries to resolve that problem because your HOA is already a group of people. You need another group of people. You cannot do this stuff alone.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to stand together. Like that's huge. That's huge right now. You guys have any questions? You're
I
on.
was
If you're on
trying to
live,
talk
just
about
I'm gonna
it
mute
was
this guy right
other
here. Hopefully I didn't mute John. But if you have any questions, please go to the chat and ask. You know, we have somebody who wrote, "No one can prevent you from contracting with anyone, and not even the Constitution. I don't believe that we no longer have constitutionally protected rights." Yeah, well,
We never have. The Constitution didn't apply to us. It applied to the merchants who hijacked the king's franchise. The founding fathers, as it were, they broke the law. They violated the trust of the king of England. And I'm
yeah,
glad they did, but that Constitution was written for themselves and their families. They didn't trust each other. It was for them. It's not for us. We're not living under a constitution. We're living under the same form of government as China is. It's a family dynasty dictatorship, okay, in China, and so
yeah,
so it is here. But the money interests of the earth are writing all of our rules and procedures. The foreign financial interests are running everything. So just get used to
that's
it.
right.
We don't. You're wasting your time if you're talking about the Constitution and protesting. No, we have to do things on our own. We have the power. We just aren't using it. Just like, we can set up our own arbitration forms and be the trial court. Why aren't we doing that? We have all the power. And then we just go to the judge and say, here, stamp this. Shut up.
That's incredible. I've been learning a little bit about this through Jack and Margie Flynn, and who I really appreciate. But it is really about the language, because everything is like it's in our faces, but we don't see it. So is the word attorney, when you were talking about that, just there's so
The
many things.
etymology,
Yeah.
of words, start learning where they came from.
Mhm.
They're
So
like,
how would
yeah.
people start learning? Where would you send people who are interested in learning more about this?
Well, look at, okay, let's see. You have these, you got to look at something online. I mean, I'm so used to going to the law library. I like corpus juris secundum and on real estate. If you want to look at property, okay, just read it. Read the case law, okay? The case law is going to give you the most information. So where do I get my case law from? Well, you could do it online probably, or through cheap, and inexpensive subscriptions. If you look at a statute and the annotated version of the statute, look at the annotation to the statute. What that means is there's a statute and there's a bunch of case law that's implementing the statute in its ruling. And that's where you really learn about the way property is viewed. But understand that there's a thing called the law of property. And I mentioned this in my last video, or in the one before that, yesterday. The law of property is, for example, this pen I'm holding in my hand. The law of this property is that I'm holding it in my hand. And you're not. That makes it mine. It's that simple. So my example was, and I've had several cases like this, where the business licensing division is contacting my client saying, I want to have a list of all your chattels, your property, your furniture, and your office so we can tax it. Okay, so you have to understand the very subtle thing here. If the government is asking you to disclose the thing it wants to tax because it doesn't know of the thing that it wants to tax, then it's not taxable. Think about it. What is not taxable? Private property,
Mhm.
intangible property. I think it's, private property, not taxable. So I like to write a letter back saying, yeah, I got your tax form to fill out, but if you would provide me with a list of the things you want to tax, then I certainly will fill it out and agree to pay the tax on it. And then, of course, the response should be, which they never respond, is the response would be, we don't have a list of your property. We need you to give it to us. And then my response to that is, well, isn't that the definition of you can't tax this?
And private property.
You can't tax this, meaning private property. It's
Yeah.
private. Why? Because you don't know about it. You
Mhm.
can't tell me I have to discover it because then it's not private anymore.
Exactly.
I'm not required
They
to step into a tax liability.
And you know what? So what's so great about this in this time right now is that people are starting to realize how bamboozled we've been and how to get out of it. And you are definitely one of the masters of how to get out of being bamboozled, which I love. aceofcoins.com, you guys, if you want to learn more about John and his company, because he does so many things over at Ace of Coins. One of the things I love is the licensing of your biometric data. They are using your biometric data. If he also has cryptocurrency, how to buy cryptocurrency tax free, and just many, many more things that he offers. But this is incredible, especially when I first was many years ago. I was talking to a friend and I asked him. I said, "How do you own property when you have to pay taxes every single year on it? How is it yours? That doesn't make sense."
Yeah. And what is
So
ownership anyways? Look at you'll find, okay, look at property ownership. You're going to find some really interesting case law on this. So if you want to learn more, okay, look at what the definition of ownership is. There's a philosophical debate on this. It's centuries old. I don't even know the answer to it because you just have to look at each situation. Okay. So the most common one right now, the understanding is if I have the exclusive right to sell something, then I'm the owner. Because how can you really own something? I mean, if
mhm.
I eat a grape, well, I guess I own it because no one else is going to get it and no one wants it. I mean, I guess I own it, right? I consumed it, therefore I own it. I mean, I don't know how. It's a philosophical debate.
Yeah,
it,
very true. Very true. Well, Hawaiians don't
yeah.
believe in owning land. It's like I interviewed this auntie for the book I'm finishing up, and she said, you know, they took care of it. It's called malama. They malama the aina, which means taking care of the land, and so, but they never owned it. That, you know, that was that she said that's what happened when the government came and stole the land in Hawaii. Because for those of you who don't know, it was and
Yeah,
is
right.
still
They wouldn't
under.
claim ownership.
Yeah,
Right. Well, it's the same thing. I mean, if you can't take it with you, right, then you don't know.
exact. That was the
Right.
point.
So
Yeah.
that makes us by default the steward of all the resources we're using, and of course we are. That's the really the law. The natural law is we're the steward of all the resources that we are entrusted with. So sure, but for like conversational things and legal contracts, we use the term ownership, and we miss the idea that it's a trustee. It's a trustee relationship because it's not mine because the people that come after me are going to be using it. I'm just the trustee today, you know. I'm the steward of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they are the beneficiary, would be the government, would be whoever
The
owns
government
the,
it's exercising a right by delegation we gave it. So it's acting in parallel with ourselves. The government is supposed to act in a consistent manner, but it's not because you have groups of people with certain types of financial interest that have commandeered our governments.
yes,
They're now being used against us.
yes.
Before they were, so we're fighting our own money. So realize when you're doing that, don't do it. Stop doing that. That's why I have an arbitration clause in the easement. I'm not going to go into the circuit court. Right? You think I'm going to go argue with some trial court judge about my money and my property? No, I don't care what he thinks. I care what my neighbors think. So we
That's
have to
awesome.
act that way. Yeah.
So the first part, when people are listening to this, and you gave some websites and some ideas of where to start to learn more about this. If somebody had property right now and they were just wanting to look into supporting their property and to keeping it safe for them to use it, and Malama the Aina take care of the land, where would you tell them to start? Is with the easement?
Well, okay, easements are going to protect you from claims against the title. So that's generically just saying,
Oh, okay.
look at this as a tool. It's something that hasn't been used in this way, sort
It's
of,
true. I've
really.
never heard this
Yeah.
before.
I mean, yeah, it's been used, but not the way we're using it. But it's old. It predates the Constitution. So look
Wow.
to an example of an easement. Here's another one. Look at your HOA covenant. Those who have a recorded covenant, that's a lien on the property as well. Then go look at the taxing authority. Look at your taxing statute for property taxes and how the millage is established and your rates. And the statutes for that, those statutes comprise a lien on the title. But it's the title. Don't confuse the title with the use of the property, the easement. They're two separate things.
No,
So HOA pertains to the title, the easement pertains to the use of the property, the possession of it. So just understand that. So that's the very beginning is like people try to confuse the title with the easement all the time, and they're not the same thing.
No, correct. Yeah. So, what do you think about what's happening in Lahaina and Maui? Because they had these two bills that were absolutely, oh my goodness, authoritarian bills. One was going to allow 9 people to start to govern over the entire west coast of Maui, to rebuild Lahaina, which is Lahaina is a small little part, and they're expanding it to
Yeah,
have these 9 people govern over the whole west coast, and then they were also going to they're working toward using eminent domain
sure.
and tax benefits if people give up their property. I mean, it's absolutely disgusting
Well, notice
what
how
they're doing over there.
that's all the title. Okay,
Yeah.
anything that comes out of your legislature, that's the title. So just know that there's that going on, and you still have easement rights, but more importantly, you should be working with people. If they have 9 people, you should have 900. There's no excuse for not having that 900 people that are pretty much on the same page. I mean, look at the technology we're using right now for this call. There's no excuse why we can't immediately have the communication that are necessary. And I always go back to the example of the hypothetical example. Imagine if you gave the American revolutionaries email.
Oh my gosh.
Imagine how effective that would have been. I mean, really, the only reason the American Revolution ended is because the king realized he was fighting his own money, because France was helping the colonists. That's really why it ended. It wasn't, he had all the might and the power and the resources. So yeah, so that is going to happen. And why don't you look at the funding source? Think about it.
It's the federal government. I mean, it's,
Nine people. I guarantee you there's a budget and there's a
oh
tax
yeah, yeah.
and there's a
You should
contract.
see the
Look that
hundreds of
up. And there's a
millions of
budget
dollars.
approval, there's a budget approval process, and it's probably with your state and or your state legislature. In the legislative branch, go find out what your budget approval process for this 9 people, which is, look, I know the 9 people, they're outside the Constitution. I already know all that. I know
Yeah.
it's illegal, right? I'm telling you how to solve the problem. Go look
Yeah.
at the budgeting
Well,
approval
it died.
process.
That bill died, but they're still
They're gonna
working
push
on it.
it. They're probably doing it already in some way. They
Yeah,
just
yeah.
so go look at your budget approval process and then make it to where they can't get anything done and never get a budget approval. Just make it, just go look at that. And there's ways of doing that. We can't, I don't know, I
Yeah.
don't talk about that too much, but you need to go look at budget approval, just like with your Department of Health. It's not about health. As you know, go look at the people that
Yeah.
work there. They're not even healthy, right?
Oh my gosh.
So,
Yes.
publish a vote of no confidence. Have a lot of people publish a vote of no confidence, and then go to your budget approval process for the Department of Health and say that the Department of Health should be defunded because people are sicker than ever. They're on more drugs, they're fatter than ever, more people are dying from cancer and obesity, and the Department of Health is getting more and more money. So
That's
we're going to
true.
blame the Department of Health on the health crisis that we're facing right now, and therefore it doesn't need this money. We need to put it somewhere else. Take their money away. Take the money away. Guys, come on, you got to work together. You can solve these problems. These are our agents. This is how you solve the problem.
Oh, I like this a lot because I'm all about action. And I, was thinking again, because I love the Constitution and our rights are from God and the Constitution is supposed to protect our rights, but this government is not even a government, it's a corporation. And there's the whole thing's a sham. And this actually, I feel like this has some more solutions. I feel like
Yeah,
what you're
and,
teaching has way
you,
more solutions.
you've got situations where the counties in California, for example, they're probably doing this in Hawaii. The counties are foreclosing on people's homes and they're using receivership to do it. I'm not going to get into what that is too much, but just think when they're causing all these damages against people, that people should be making insurance claims against the counties for the wrongful acts of their employees. Don't try to sue them for constitutional violations. Make an insurance claim and sue them for not paying on the insurance claim. They cause damages to your property. Now, take it a step further and start finding people that suffer this similar damages and have them collaborate with them. Get like, you only need to find 5 or 6 people in a county and file an involuntary receivership against your county. Put them in receivership.
Oh, goodness. So what would that do, John?
That would force a liquidation of your county
Oh
to
my
sell its
gosh.
property and assets and dissolve itself and make everyone else whole. Get the fuck out of town.
Oh my gosh. Lahaina could do that. Maui could do that.
Then who steps in its place? Well, hopefully you guys got your act together and you form a group of people that can commandeer the resources that are just sitting there.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. Because if you, yeah, I mean, and go on from there. But you can liquidate these creatures.
Oh my God, that's
You can
fantastic.
liquidate them. They're liquidating you.
Yeah.
They're liquidating you every day. Liquidate them. There's
That's
more work for them.
fantastic. I've
Yeah.
never heard that before.
That's the name of the game. Who do you think wrote all the statutes for family court? The banking interests.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, that's the whole point of all of this is the banking
Yeah.
companies, the
So-
banking interests for the smart cities and the
Yeah.
energy, sustainable BS stuff
So
that's going
picture
on.
2 or 3 of your legislatures having a hypothetical scenario, having a golf match with their banker buddies. And they're saying, hey, people are, this divorce thing is going on and we need to modify our statutes because a lot of people are going through divorce or whatever. And so the banker buddy says, well, we need to liquidate the family. And so
Oh
the
my
state legislature says, oh, okay, that makes total sense, sure. So the state legislature, this happened, guys. I ain't making this
Yeah.
up. The state
I believe you,
legislature
yeah.
group went to what predated the US Constitution, receivership. That was around before the US Constitution. They took those rules and they put them in your family court divorce proceeding. That is not divorce, guys. Check it
Oh
out.
my
When you read
gosh.
those statutes, you're going to find out it's a bankruptcy proceeding. And why wouldn't the bankers do that? Because if I were a banker, I'd say, well, heck, I mean, who knew it was going to be 50% divorce rate? I'm betting on the banks. Let's liquidate them, because when the court coerces somebody under penalty of contempt to sell his house and split the equity with his spouse or whatever, guess who makes a huge amount of internal rate of return? Forget the face value of your mortgage, guys. The banks ain't making the 5 or 8% or whatever you're paying in interest for whatever you think you've got a good rate. No, if you sell your house and someone else buys the property and uses a mortgage, that's the refinance of your property. And if it's, let's say, 10 years into the contract and the face value is 6% interest rate on your mortgage, your bank's making like 68%.
Oh, jeez. Wow. Wow.
Internal rate of return, look it up. Internal rate of return, net present value. That's what's governing family court, is your liquidation. Okay, what about people in, we can get into this more and more, because look at, okay, so with the property tax thing, right? The claims on the property, that's a liquidation. What's going to happen when people are fighting for their property? What do? Hire a lawyer. They pay them a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
It's being liquidated.
Oh
The
my
lawyer
goodness.
is getting hundreds of dollars an hour to help the liquidation.
Oh, that's
You're
disgusting.
being liquidated the whole day through. I mean, let's go back to look at wage earning. Okay, nothing wrong with that. Employees, we need them. Okay, but understand, when you're an employee, you're selling your labor at a discount rate. So
Yeah,
what's it for the employer to pay you? Well, he's selling your labor at a marked up rate.
that's true.
You're being liquidated. If you
Oh my
think that
goodness, the whole
if,
thing. Yeah.
if you think a 401k is a good bet, or an IRA, you're being liquidated. It's a tax. If you park your money over there, you're letting some fool on Wall Street gamble with your money where you
Yeah.
wouldn't gamble, he will. And
Yeah.
he's not liable because it's a pension fund. You're being liquidated. Liquidate them. It's time we start liquidating them. We have the
Absolutely.
plans. That's what the biometric data security agreement is. You have a security agreement, you create a lien on your biometric data. And then you can do whatever you want. You can create licensing terms. You write the terms. Don't wait for your state legislature to write terms on privacy. You write them and make it a royalty agreement with Google. Google's the debtor. Listen, people, Google is the debtor when it collects your data.
Wow.
So is Zoom on this video call. It's
Mhm.
collecting my image. I can
Yeah.
put a lien on Zoom. I didn't do it yet, but I will put a lien on it, because I want to claim that property, because if I don't, it's abandoned. I don't have a right to complain.
Wow. That's incredible. You know, you're making it, you're opening my eyes, and I'm sure other people's eyes, to really seeing the power that we have and the power that we can take back. Because sometimes it does feel futile around what's
Sometimes,
been
yeah.
happening, and especially with the attack on Maui and just everything that's happening. But this actually gives me a lot of hope. So thank you for that,
Yeah,
John.
there's things we can do. So, but work
Hmm.
together. That's a really,
Yeah.
work together and learn. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Try your best. Understand what's going on about property, and that you're being liquidated. And this is a war on you. It's a
Yeah.
war on those who produce.
So my last question is, where would somebody start? Where would Lahaina and Maui start to liquidate our the Maui County and the actually Hawaii County,
Well,
Hawaii, the
first,
state?
okay, in a
Let's just go to the
liquidation,
top.
in a receivership, let's talk about a receivership. It's slightly different than a bankruptcy, but I use the term interchangeably. But in a receivership, there's got to be certain elements. You've got to have a debtor. So the debtor would be the tortfeasor, the wrongdoer. In this case, it would be the county. Okay, so
Hmm.
the county's the debtor, but he's not the debtor until you make him a debtor. You have to file a claim. So that makes you the creditor. Then your interest in the debtor has to be expressed, and it's expressed with collateral. It's expressed with a tort that was committed against you, a wrong, damages. So that's another way to make the tortfeasor, the wrongdoer, the debtor. And you express your claim by saying, you did this to me and it's worth this much to me and I want it now.
Oh
That's how
my
you make your
gosh,
claim, essentially. Yeah. So you have enough people to do that. You
we
can
do.
force an involuntary receivership or bankruptcy. You can force it, and you can do it in your state court, but I would do it in federal. The rules are there. Go look them up. Go look up at the rules of bankruptcy in chapter, it's title 11, I believe, or 12 of the US Code. There's the rules of bankruptcy proceeding and also title 28 USC, because that's the rules of civil procedure, okay, for the federal court. Go look all that up because it'll tell you how to start, commence, and administer a bankruptcy proceeding, and you can use the government's trustee to do it.
Wow. This is incredible, John. Wow. You guys listening to this? If anybody has any questions, please state them now because we're going to pray in a moment. But John, you're giving so much hope because it's it's just been really hard over here sometimes,
Yeah.
especially seeing what happened in not just Lahaina, but all over, I mean, Texas and just everywhere that's happening. And I really feel that this is the time where people are really waking up to the fact that we have been bamboozled and finding our power. And this is giving people back the power. Holy poop. This is
We've always had
fantastic.
it. We've always had it. We just got to work
And
together.
it's been hidden under
Mhm.
under the legalese language, under all of
Yeah, a
this
lot of these, many of these remedies are not in the Constitution. They've been around forever. Receivership has been around in communities forever, since before recorded history. Let me give you an example. What happens when there's a family in a community where the person who does all the heavy lifting, the father dies, and the children and the mom, are kind of helpless? What happens to the property of that household? It has to be cared for, but people in the community will come in and take care of it. That's known as a receivership. It's necessary. We need that. That's been
Yeah, we
around
do.
forever. Yeah. So today it's just being used against us to liquidate us. Yeah. So
Wow.
we can do it. We can use it as a tool. Just like the Bar Association does a bunch of
Hmm.
evil organization, right?
Yes.
We want to own the law. Just like imagine if you try to own Tuesday. That's what the bar has done with the law. They want to own it. They can't own it, but they want to exclude you from it. So you can
Yeah.
operate that way. You should. Private association. There is no license to practice law, everybody. There's no license for lawyers, but they're the ones that write the laws that make licensing for you. But they don't need a license. You do. Why don't they? They write the damn laws. How
That's
are
amazing.
we getting
Yeah.
this far in society when the lawmaker that writes laws that says you have to have a license or else it's a crime, he himself doesn't have to have one.
Well, there's a reason. I mean, it's a total sham from the beginning, from the very, very beginning of it all. Because when you said that about the Constitution, that made a lot of sense because I've heard different things about the different people that signed it and but this is again giving us back hope and the possibility that we can turn things around, which I always have faith in.
It'll happen because the bad people, right? They're going to collapse everything. The question is, how
Yeah.
many is it going to get? How many people is it going to hurt? They just can't. You can't do what they're doing, and it's not sustainable. They want to
Mm-mm.
create worldwide communism. It's just not
Yeah.
sustainable. Every effort to create communism just it happens. Oh, and then just destroy stuff, and then capitalism reemerges. Yeah, so it's always going to be
Yeah.
like that. It's a natural law. But hey, let's try to keep it neat. Let's try to preserve something for our children, educate them, hand them off the baton. It's a big burden. So we can make
And
it.
so do you have any schools or any programs that teach this stuff about receivership, or do we just go into
Okay.
researching
Well,
it? Do you already
well,
have
that
something created?
you can research it. Texas has excellent laws on receivership. Texas, the state. And by the way, receivership is universal. You can look at any jurisdiction. It's going to be very similar. The elements are very common. I have my video series, right? So one video series is called Divorcing the State. It shows married couples how to get the state out of their marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps them understand that it's a divorce proceeding is a receivership liquidation. So they
Yeah.
want to avoid that. And so I have a way of avoiding it, but many times they don't know about this until there's the problem or the one spouse goes to the court to change the marriage, right? So my course teaches about that. I just started publishing that this year, so I've got a lot more content to add there, but there's quite a bit up there already to help you understand if you want to learn. And I
Okay,
have a
great.
lot of references you can see for yourself. Like here's one example. A point of law would be if I have an arrangement about the care for my child with my child's mother, for example, and we figured it out. we do this, we do that, we pay for this, he pays for this, he pays that. And let's say we're not married. I'm just giving an example. So the law of that, the custody is already established. We already have an agreement.
Yeah.
If one of us doesn't want to abide by the agreement, we want to change it, but the other one doesn't agree, well, then we can't do anything then. Everything has to stay status quo. What right does one party have to go to the police and force the agreement to change? This is what's being done in family court.
Yeah.
Petition for child custody. It's when the parents don't agree and the one parent goes to the state to get the police power to force an agreement. This is wrong.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. This is what's happening and people don't realize you're creating your own demise.
Yes.
Many times, like when there's a divorce, one spouse leaves, the other one, let's say there's a breadwinner, right? And let's say it's the husband, this is a stereotypical example, and the wife wants to leave. Okay, she's leaving, and she was entitled to certain benefits while in the household, but she wants to be out of the household for some reason. Okay, well, typically, I'm not speaking for every man, but most men would want to take care of his former wife and still provide some form of benefits. But she voluntarily left and abandoned those original benefits. She can't now go to the court and tell the court, get the court to force new benefits that she wants under threat of incarceration.
Oh my goodness.
That's against the public interest and it violates the court's duty to preserve the status quo, but they're doing the opposite.
Yeah, they are.
So what I just said are a few phrases, okay, preserve the status quo, change a contract, use the court contract. If you go look that up, you'll find a bunch of case law on that and you'll see you can't do it. They're doing it, but they think that's okay. Now,
yeah.
Soon they will realize it is wrong. Soon. There will be a few things coming up this year.
Well, that's fantastic. You got some good stuff. All right, you guys. Well, this is John J. Singleton with Ace of Coins. Go to aceofcoins.com to learn more information and check out, what is it called? Divorcing the State, which sounds like a really good program. For sure.
Yeah, Divorcing the State is at aceofcoins.club. We have .com and
.club.
.club. Yeah, so
Okay.
Divorcing the State is on there. You'll find the biometric lien is explained on there. We have a video series on that. There's the cryptographic currency, and I also go into the LLC and changing property rights and strategies for avoiding tax consequences. And this works in all the countries, by the way, all the modern countries. I just published a video recently on Ireland, explaining how this works in Ireland to avoid crypto taxes.
And where can they find that video?
That right now it's on YouTube. I didn't give you guys all the detail. I just gave you an overview. So if you want to go get a free overview of it, go check it out on YouTube. Privacy Fight is the name of the channel right now.
Privacy Fight. Okay. And
Yeah.
do you know what the title is for the episode?
Yeah, that one, it starts with the word Ireland. Let me check real quick.
Okay.
Ireland.
And then we'll do a quick prayer and then people, we got to do our homework. And that's what the thing is too, is people, they don't want to, we're so busy, but that's also by design. It's by design that we are, people are trying to just have enough money to put food on the table and dealing with all the stuff around men wanting to be women and all this madness. But it is our kuleana, our responsibility to go deeper with this and to see how we can take back our freedom that is given to us by God, not by the government, by God. That's one thing that's why I always do prayers, because this is a spiritual war, and creating a relationship with whatever you call God, infinite source, love, whatever, that actually, I feel that you're guided. Then you're like inspired, like somebody sent me one of your videos and I'm like, oh, I interview him. Let's talk about that. So it's the inspiration and then it gets the ball rolling. Did you get that, the title for that?
It's called Ireland LLC Crypto Tax Strategies. You'll see it in the chat window here.
I love it.
URL. So
Okay,
enjoy
great.
that one. But you can apply that in many instances. I just gave you a few examples in there.
Awesome. Well, John, thank you so much for your time. Let's do a quick prayer. Great Spirit, infinite source of all things. You are beating our hearts and breathing our bodies right now. You're running the tides in the ocean. You're guiding the honeybees to their flower. You know what is going on this planet better than anybody. And we're just so grateful that you are guiding each one of us, and John J. Singleton with Ace of Coins, guiding his heart and his inspiration. He's been inspired to create these programs and to learn about the systems the way they truly are, and to shine light where there's been so much darkness and so much damage to people's families. So just sending him so much appreciation, Great Spirit, and knowing that he is always taken care of and always held and protected in the light and of love that is you. And we just send this frequency to all people that they know what is their kuleana, what is theirs to do, and that they're inspired to do the next thing that helps to awaken more people on the planet and move us all toward freedom and peace and harmony with each other. And we get to watch as those who do not value human life, who do not value the sanctity of family, who do not value our keiki, our children, we get to watch as they are peaceably removed from office or they voluntarily step down. And we get to watch as this world becomes such a better place, and the future of our children get to live in a place where they are free, they know that they matter, they are sovereign, and they are always protected. And we call that forth now. And so it is. And so it is. Thank you everybody for joining live. And John, always mahalo for you, to you,
Thank
and
you,
much
Shell.
aloha.
Have a good weekend.
Thanks, you too.